viewers, greetings. I do hope that you are well and that you're keeping safe wherever it is that you are viewing us from. My name is Tessie Carvin, and I will be the host for our New Times Roundtable discussion on the Eastern DRC crisis. Remember, this is actually a series in many of conversations that we will be having in the around the crisis in the Eastern DRC. And if you missed the first one, make sure that you can just go to our page, our YouTube page on the New Times, and get to view the very first conversation that we had. Now, I have with me a wonderful panel. Let me begin with Dr. Ajay Shaka Mugabe. He is an associate professor of Transitional Justice and Peace Building at the University of Rwanda. He is also currently the acting director of the Center for Conflict Management at the University of Rwanda. Karibu sana, Dr. Mugabe.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We also have Dr. Alphonse Mulefu. He is a senior lecturer at the School of Law and acting principal of the College of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Rwanda. Dr. Alphonse, karibu sana.
Asante.
We also have with us Mr. James Karuhanga. He is my colleague and the New Times news editor. He has a vast knowledge and experience writing on the Eastern DRC. Karibu sana, Mr. Karuhanga.
Thank you.
We'll also be joined on call later on by Adele Kibasumba. She is the president of the Mahoro Peace Association and a member of the Gakondo, the Global Banyamulenge Coordination Committee, and she'll be joining us on call from the U.S. Gentlemen, it's been quite a weekend. Saturday was a big day for many who are waiting and for many who have been observing what has been happening in Eastern DRC. We had for the first time EAC and SADC as regional blocs sitting together to discuss a way forward concerning this crisis. So I just want to first of all get your general views on this summit. Do you feel like after this sitting we now have a semblance of a way forward? Let me begin with you, Dr. Shaka.
This is the first time that the two blocs, regional blocs, meet to discuss the conflict in Eastern DRC. It marks a significant step, but not a sufficient one, because so many meetings took place before. So we are expecting more than just gathering in Dar es Salaam or elsewhere. But since they came together and made a number of recommendations, which are encouraging, including the fact that the problem in Eastern DRC should be resolved through political means and not military means. And for the first time, M23 was recognized as a key protagonist in the conflict, and because one of the resolutions say that the government of DRC should discuss with state actors and non-state actors, including the M23. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Alphonse, what did you pick from this summit?
I think what you could see as a significant contribution is an understanding between two blocs, which was moving rapidly apart. I think that was an achievement of the summit in itself. Apart from that, as my colleagues have said, we wait to see the implementation, because we're not short of many agreements, and quite frankly, what is said in the resolutions of the summit are not very different from those that have been said in other agreements that came before.
Yeah.
So now the question is, how sure are we that this time around what was made to be a way forward is indeed going to be implemented? And this is mainly on the side of the DRC as a government, because I don't think other countries can express their willingness and provide their willingness and support to a country that is dealing with a certain issue, but the primary responsibility rests on the country where the issues are happening, where the problem is. So how sure are we that the DRC government is committed to the implementation of the recommendations that were issued? For me, that is a wait and see moment.
Yeah, we wait and see. But as you said, the burden of it lies with the DRC.
Yeah, absolutely, because support can be there, can be provided from different actors, international community, different countries. But you support where there is something that is happening. So if the DRC government, what is interesting with the states, a state can be weak to everybody's not seeing, but still be adamant that we don't want any other actor interfering with what we are doing. Yeah. So it is the responsibility of the DRC government to express will, and then the support can be availed to its disposal.
Yeah.
But without its political will, I think we can expect less from what was agreed upon. But very big achievement is that these two blocs were increasingly going apart from understanding the issues. At least this was the first moment where the two blocs came together and agreed these are the issues and this is the way forward. And that is important in itself.
Yeah, that's a huge step. Karuhanga, when we last had this discussion, you were positive-ish, but you're also skeptical. I don't know whether that is still your stand after the meeting on Saturday.
I still am optimistic, cautiously optimistic, like so many other people out here are. And back to the joint summit, for me, what is important right now, what I would like to put emphasis on is the root cause of the problem. And we, by now, are informed that even though it doesn't appear in the communique, we are informed that during the meeting, the presidents they had an opportunity to be briefed by an elderly head of state among them about the root cause of the conflict, about the issue of the Rwandophones or Kinyarwanda speaking or Banyarwanda in Eastern Congo, the history of it, the genesis of the issue. This is something that is usually ignored. Last time we talked about the misinformation and disinformation out here, which is dangerous because you cannot solve or find a solution to issues when there is no conceptual clarity. Yeah. So if they really had a good discussion around this and are on the same page, I pray they can be on the same page about it. Yeah. That will be very important. Changing the narratives out here. So many intentionally, I don't know, there's a lot going on. Very dangerous, covert, and if you read, you get to feel that there is a lot of bad intention from some people in this world that don't want to see problems solved. Yeah. So if people, for example, understand that M23, these are Congolese, not Banyarwanda, as the Congolese government wants the world to believe, that's a huge lie, then we are getting somewhere.
Yeah. So they needed to set that record straight.
Changing the narrative.
Yeah. I hear you. Dr. Shaka, we saw President Tshisekedi choosing to join this meeting online, virtually rather. Did this send any message? Were we hoping to see him physically in Dar es Salaam?
Yeah, it did. Of course, we're now using online means that are available, these technologies. But I was expecting him to be the first person to arrive in Dar es Salaam, given that he's the primary responsible for addressing this conflict in Eastern DRC. As Dr. Mrefu was putting it, he has the primary responsibility. Others, we come in as supporters, contributors. So I interpreted this as a very bad signal. And it wasn't just President Tshisekedi, but two of the pronounced supporters, the President of Burundi, Ndayishimiye, wasn't physically present. I think he was represented by his Prime Minister. So for me, this can't be just a coincidence. What is it that was very important for these countries that are heavily involved in the conflict in DRC not to be represented at the presidential level? So I think this denotes a certain malaise on the side of the President Tshisekedi, and not being ready to discuss openly the issue that have been going on for many years now. It also has to do with lack of political will, I suspect. I was a bit optimistic the week before, because I saw the president of the National Assembly, the Law Chamber, Vital Kamerhe, because he was saying the president is now ready for negotiations. He wasn't ready for selling the country, which wasn't very clear. But I thought, since he was ready for negotiations, he was going to attend this very important summit. From my personal perspective, I saw it as a negative sign, and possibly what has been discussed there is not going to be respected, just like many other meetings happened. So it wasn't a positive message from my own understanding.
It wasn't a good sign. Dr. Mrefu, I don't know how you interpreted this, and let me just add a spanner to the works. The AUC chair, Musa Faki, who actually was there at the opening ceremony, but somehow he was asked to leave. He was not part of the closed-door session, and he is actually a guarantor to the Luanda and Nairobi processes, and he had to leave. How do you interpret all this?
The incident of Faki leaving the closed-door session, I would say that it was an unfortunate distraction, because you could choose not to have him participate as someone who is giving opinion and participating in taking decisions, but is an important actor in this situation. Yeah. Maybe attending and feeling the atmosphere of discussion would help him going forward in the way he oversees, because the Rwanda process is under the AU mechanism. So that was strange, and I think sometimes you don't know who takes a final decision in these matters, and why so. So we are limited in terms of to what extent can we analyze what happened. But I think it was an unfortunate incident that happened. Why was he invited in the first place if they were not intending to have him present during the discussions? I don't think he was invited just to participate in the photo session. Yeah. So sometimes, even in important meetings, I think sometimes there are some confusions that happen, and people who are supposed to take right decisions take wrong decisions. Yeah.
I hear you. Karanga, as I bring you in, I'd like you to give us your opinion on this, but also explain to us, we've mentioned two processes, the Nairobi process and the Luanda process. For somebody who doesn't quite understand what this is, could you share an overview of these processes and what they really mean to the peace, if you'd say, of Eastern DRC?
The two processes are quite important. I mean, that's why they're important processes. But maybe let me start at how they differ. The East African Community-led Nairobi process was all about bringing the parties to the conflict in Congo to talk, to sit down and discuss their issues. It was an inter-Congolese dialogue, right?
Yes.
The Congolese, all the factions in Congo to come and sit and discuss their issues, find a way forward. The Rwanda process came up because of the conflict that had started between Rwanda and its neighbor, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Congolese government alleging that Rwanda is backing, supporting the rebels, caused friction. We all know what happened. Congolese government, showing the Rwandan ambassador the door and everything that followed. So the Rwanda process was about trying to, sort out the Rwanda-Congo issue as well. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe Dr. Shaka, you want to weigh in on these two processes?
Yes. Those are the key points. The Luanda process was mainly about addressing the issue between Rwanda and DRC, focusing on the neutralization of FDLR, while the Nairobi process was mainly between Congolese actors, government, and those armed groups, excluding M23, because M23 wasn't integrated in this Nairobi peace process. I remember they used to have, I think, more than 100 of armed groups.
Sorry, Doctor. At the beginning,
yes,
they were also involved.
Yes, and then later on, they were no longer part of the process, exactly because the situation wasn't clear. M23 was being discussed in Luanda in their absence. So they decided not to just be following the resolutions that were being decided in so many meetings. We know very few of the meetings that took place, by the way. Many of them were not publicized the way we know the Dar es Salaam Joint Summit, etc. And then that was the biggest problem. And then what was the development that followed? President Tshisekedi and the government sanitized a big number of the armed groups that were in Nairobi. Today they are called Wazalendo. So many of those were fighting on the side of the government. And this is one of the biases of the process of Nairobi. So many other groups were not included, while those that were included were fighting on the side of the government, and they were later sanitized. They are now fighting alongside the government forces. Of course, combining them, the fusion between the two processes, for me, is a very good step, because there was a kind of competition emerging between the two processes, Luanda and the Nairobi one. The Nairobi process was falling dormant for a number of months. I didn't know why, but there was a kind of competition, and I think this was going to make the process even more complex.
I was actually going to ask you, Dr. Alphonse, now that we are merging these two, the Luanda and the Nairobi processes, does it mean we are going to see results?
Yeah, I think what is very useful by merging the two is that it gives the opportunity for those that are involved in the discussions to look at the issues of DRC holistically, because you cannot isolate one aspect of this complex conflict and discuss it to the conclusion without talking about other aspects. So by bringing the two processes together, I think it gives space for those that are involved in finding a solution to come up with solutions that cut across all the issues, and where they overlap, where we could be having overlapping recommendations, now we can have harmonized recommendations. So I think that's very important. But again, when you see the Pretoria Agreement, which looks like what was the Luanda Agreement, because Pretoria Agreement focused on the issue between Rwanda and DRC. And you look at the Goma Agreement with the DRC and CNDP, it's like there were like two parallel discussions that happened. And if you read the recommendations, you find that they all kind of come to the same conclusions of how do you stabilize Eastern DRC to make the Banyarwanda, the Kinyarwanda speaking communities, especially those that are persecuted, live peacefully in their communities, and how do you deal with the issue of the FDLR that continues to perpetuate this genocide ideology. So I think if actually had they taken these two agreements and put them together, put them in the blender, and came up with something that which I think is what is going to, because issues never changed.
Yeah.
Issues are still the same 30 years since these conflicts started. So yeah, it is important that they have a space where they can look at these issues holistically, because isolating one aspect from other issues was not leading to helpful solutions.
So joining us on call this evening is Adele Kibasumba. She is the president of the Mahoro Peace Association and a member of Gakondo, the Global Banyamulenge Coordination Committee. And she is actually joining us on call. She is based in the United States. Adele, is it morning or is it evening, afternoon?
It's almost midday.
Okay, so good afternoon.
Yes.
Okay. So, Adele, we had the EAC-SADC Summit held on Saturday. I just want to begin with your views, your general views of this summit. Do you feel like we have a way forward after this summit was held?
So, my takeaway from the EAC and SADC summit was that the conflict was brought back home by the regional actors, which is the EAC, the Eastern African Community. It was outsourced in SADC without EAC consultation and involvement. This helps to de-escalate the tensions between Rwanda and South Africa, and it also helps the SADC hopefully to exit in dignified way. So the outcome overall, I thought was measured and recognized that the issue requires a political solution. And it leaves a path forward to dialogue, which is good. So my only issue is that usually the dialogue brings actors together, but leaves the problem behind.
So do you think that this time, they did make a lot of resolutions? Do you think this time they will follow through and, peace will come back to the Eastern DRC?
Honestly, I'm a bit pessimistic in terms of, these meetings that are held about the Eastern DRC. This is not the first one. We've had one in Burundi, in Bujumbura. We've had some in Nairobi. We've had some in Luanda, and also Ethiopia. We've had other agreements in the past, from the Sun City Agreement You know, the CNDP one in Kampala. So we've had a lot of good meetings and good communiques that come from these meetings, but when you're looking on the ground and it really does not materialize. So I'm cautiously optimistic about this. I mean, overall, it looks good on paper, but it remains to be seen whether it's going to materialize on the ground.
Adele, one of the resolutions that was made is the implementation of a harmonized plan to neutralize the genocidal FDLR. And I know this is a bit personal for you. Maybe you can just share a bit of your story and why maybe if this particular resolution goes through, it will actually be a huge breakthrough.
To be honest, I think it's impossible at this point for that resolution to come to fruition. In terms of eliminating the FDLR on the grounds of the DRC terrain. So I think for everyone right now, it's very important to note that FDLR is no longer just people with guns who wants to come into Rwanda and attack and kill Tutsi in Rwanda as well as in Eastern DRC, or whatever the Tutsis are. But rather, FDLR now is an ideology that has spread, and it is so powerful than the guns that hundreds and hundreds of militia of the FDLR possess in Eastern DRC. So how do you disassociate that ideology? You can disassociate the arms from people. You can repatriate a few hundred Rwandans FDLR back to Rwanda, but are you going to also remove? How are you going to remove the ideology that was that's left in the DRC, especially in the political class, in the media, also just even in a simple, simple citizen. One time, when they were burning Major Kaminzobe, I watched the video. I was not horrified by the act of, burning a human being's life. I wasn't horrified by that, and I wasn't even horrified by the eating of a human body. I was more horrified by the whole women and children, little kids, who felt like it was plausible to come around and watch that act being happened. It was almost like a ritual that the whole village gathered around and cheered, watching that happen. That is FDLR to me. The women feeling that it's okay to bring little children of Babembe to see a Tutsi, armed force being burned and killed burned and eaten. For me, you didn't need to have a Rwandan FDLR militia there. The act of just allowing and feeling like it's okay, it's plausible to bring kids, and they were cheering. To me, that's an FDLR there. And how do you disassociate? Because those people, you're not going to take them back to Rwanda. You cannot neutralize them. You cannot neutralize that ideology. So the FDLR ideology remains in DRC for many, many years to come. Yeah. And it needs a fresh approach to neutralize it.
I hear you, Adele. As we let you go, so what is the way forward? We have had all these leaders sitting. We've had all these peace processes. In your opinion, what is the way forward?
So the way forward, I think it's obviously the dialogue. The DRC government must talk to the main protagonist, which was recognized in the recent meeting in Dar es Salaam. It's M23 and AFC. those are the key actors that need to talk. It's a DRC government and also the M23 to find the lasting solution. Second, I think the M23 should not even budge to leave where they have captured. They need to remain in those positions. That's their home, and they really need to rethink the dialogue. They need to rethink the approach of how to solve this conflict. It's not about signing agreements, because we have so many stocked somewhere in high places, but still people are suffering. So I think they should stay there and they should talk on a different grounds. As long as M23 is on a negotiating table with the DRC, I don't see any way out. But if the DRC can, listen and talk to the main protagonist, maybe we can find a lasting solution.
Adele, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and thank you for your insights. We are grateful.
Thank you so much, Tessie, for having me.
One of the resolutions is to neutralize the FDLR in Eastern DRC. And again, it is not the first time that this resolution has been brought up. Is there a practical way? We spoke earlier to Adele, and according to her, she says this is impossible. What do you feel, or what do you think?
Again, like my colleagues have said before, the bottom line here is good faith, goodwill from Kinshasa, and of course from other neighbors in the region. Genocide ideology is real.
Yeah.
By the way, it's not only confined within the borders of Congo. It's all over in African countries and beyond, in Europe. The masterminds and perpetrators of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi have gone on to spread that ideology, and it's causing problems. So what's really important is the world coming together, the two blocs coming together, understanding this problem, owning the problem, and dealing with it together. Without that, we are headed nowhere, in a way.
Yeah.
So even with the merger of the peace processes, again, it all boils down to goodwill, understanding the issue and being deliberately intentional on addressing it. That's where our biggest question is today.
So the political will
Yes.
from the DRC.
Yes.
Dr. Shaka, let me bring you in. As Karuhanga has said, and as earlier Adele mentioned, this whole genocidal ideology has to be dealt with. Even if we remove FDLR, that ideology still remains alive, and another group can come up. So then, what is the way forward?
Yeah, the ideology is deeply rooted, and I totally agree with what my colleague was saying, and it is still circulating. If you look at the hate speech in the region, hate speech that is sometimes sponsored by very known public figures in Congo, it gives me fear that instead of approaching this ideology, we are kind of accelerating it in the region. But then we can't just say and give up. This is very difficult to fight. So we need to use so many means, particularly structural approaches through education. But before education comes in, before the transformation of governance structures, social structures, and so on, there is a need to create an atmosphere where people can enjoy security. And this is the reason why the issue of FDLR comes before. Because they are not only spreading this ideology, but they are also fighting, they are killing people. So we need to make sure that this physical threat is completely stopped before we can be able to uproot the ideology. Of course, we need to use those structural approaches, including education, media, formal and informal, but also the governance structure, because this ideology is being kind of maintained and spread from somewhere, from some influential spaces, which has to do with the leadership in Congo, for instance. I see it. If you Google information from the parliament, you see how people take very, very extremist speeches, including among those who are leading the parliament. So it's extremely dangerous.
I hear you. Dr. Alphonse, come in on this. And when they talk about neutralizing the FDLR, what does that really mean? What means are they hoping to use, maybe, to neutralize the FDLR?
It is both difficult and simple. Difficult in the sense that FDLR has integrated with the FRDC. It has integrated with the Wazalendo. It is embedded within communities. So that makes it difficult. But it is simple in the sense that I don't think there is anybody hoping that they are going, the solution is to shoot every FDLR member. I think the idea is that we create an atmosphere where FDLR does not continue to grow in strength, where for its leadership is stopped from regrouping, so that the community under their hostage can be repatriated to Rwanda, encouraged to return to Rwanda, and those that are causing physical threat, as Ajay was saying, are dealt with. Then the genocide ideology can move from being part of the mainstream discourse in DRC to being a fringe idea, and that is, I think, people can live with that. But every now and then, you see that whenever there is a problem with Rwanda, whoever that has a disagreement with Rwanda will move towards collaborating with the FDLR or speaking their language. And it has been kept there as a tool to create a sort of, I would say, counterbalance on Rwanda with whoever that has anything to disagree with Rwanda. I think that needs to be dealt with because it is a serious threat, and I don't expect that there is anyone who would expect Rwanda to think that it is something that Rwanda can tolerate. So if that is dealt with, even when you read the previous peace agreements, they were talking about the process of neutralizing FDLR. They never expected that FDLR is something that and its ideology is something that was going to be dealt with in 1 week or 1 month. Because an ideology that has been perpetuated for over 30 years has had, knowingly or unknowingly, there are so many people that carry the hate that comes with it towards a community.
I hear you. And I think we're all in agreement, because I remember when we had the conversation with Dr. Mutebi, he also said unless the FDLR component is dealt with, 12 years from now we will still be having peace talks on the Eastern DRC. So I think we are all on the same.
Because its threat is not hypothetical.
Yes.
It is real. And people tend to forget that its threat is not only military, but it is a threat to Rwanda's value system of governance. It goes against the principle of unity on which Rwanda is founded. And countries, I've said it several times, countries do not only protect their physical borders, but they also protect their values. And the FDLR is a threat to one of the constitutional values that on which the current government of Rwanda is founded.
I hear you. Mr. Karanga, let me bring you in on this. One of the very important groups that need to be on the table is M23. And President Tshisekedi has continually refused to have conversations with the M23. So after this meeting, do you think, is there hope that President Tshisekedi will have talks with the M23 in hopes of finding a way forward?
I don't know. We started by talking about the fact that he didn't show up. Of course, he attended the meeting virtually, but the no show physically was a signal, like we said. I don't know why he didn't come, but I would assume that he didn't come because of the recent, his recent statements. Suggesting changing or toppling the government in Rwanda. Over a year ago, when the president of Burundi visited him, the conversations that emerged, the mention of mobilizing Rwandan youth to topple government, they called it regime change. All that in context, we lose hope in that happening. It's a tough call, really.
It's a tough call. So Dr. Shaka, as he paints that picture, because the M23 are open. They actually they wrote a letter to EAC and SADC, and in one of their asks, if you may say, is that we are open to talks. We are open to conversations. But in light of what Karuhanga is saying, then what is the way forward?
Yeah, but M23 has been consistently open to negotiation. I always come across their communique, and they always end their communique with a very small sentence that we are open for direct talks. And they're entitled to that. I don't see how this conflict will be resolved if one of the key protagonists is completely ignored. And President Tshisekedi has been radical in what he has been saying about M23, about Rwanda, to the extent that one may think that he's unable to kind of go back and replay back and start from the right footing. So he kept saying, I will never, but I think there are so many means of pressure that to some point might push him, based on what the president of the parliament was saying last time, to accept this direct negotiation. So the way forward, I think the international community must play its role and convince President Tshisekedi. I know very few conflicts that ended with no dialogue. They can destroy so many cities, they can kill so many people, but they end up meeting around tables and discuss issues, understand them the same way, and then try to find solutions. So there is a need for international pressure and a need also to stop this kind of complacency to President Tshisekedi. If so many interests are involved, I know that. But how will this conflict end if one of the key protagonists is completely ignored? So I think there is a need for that pressure, and I see some positive signals in that direction.
Dr. Alphonse, as we almost bring this to a close, I think it was Malawi that we saw that withdrew their troops. are we likely to see more of this from the people who are in the DRC? Their troops are in the DRC. Are we likely to see withdrawal of troops after these talks?
I think even if some might not withdraw, but I think they have understood that it is not an easy fight. And it takes quite a strong interest for a state to decide to send its soldiers to die for another state's interests. Yeah. So the more he delays to come to the sense that it is important to negotiate with the M23, M23 will be consolidating its legitimacy. And I think that will work against him. So if some countries stay, they will know that they are staying, fully aware that it is not going to be an easy, it is not simply staying, but it is going to engage in a serious military confrontation, and they have to be prepared to explain that to their countries, which is going to be difficult because as the consensus emerged that the only way out of the conflict is dialogue, then whoever that goes against that is seen as someone who is bad intentioned. So that's why I think it is going to work as pressure on, because he has no army that is fighting. He has literally outsourced the fighting to the FDLR, to these to mercenaries, to these undisciplined Wazalendo groups and these other countries that came to support him from SADC and Burundi. Yeah. So for me, I think it will end up increasing pressure on him to realize that it's important to sit down and negotiate with M23.
I hear you. My last question to you, Karuhanga, is Dr. Shaka mentioned the international community. Where do they come into all this, and what is their role?
The international community is important if it has the goodwill again to act, to do the right thing. Yeah. Brings me back to Rwanda, 1990, 1994, what happened and how the international community behaved. The Congolese have to stand up and save their country. For example, just adding to what Dr. Alphonse has just said, I mean, we had the AFC M23 leaders say that they are marching on to Kinshasa. If dialogue fails, then we could see them marching. I don't know how long it will take. That's one way of solving this problem. We can only hope that we see dialogue working, and of course the international community understanding the issues at hand, correcting or changing the wrong narratives. That's the best thing that the international community could do, and it starts within our neighborhood. All states are part of the international community. If, for example, Burundi continues emboldening the Congolese government and many other states, if the SADC bloc does not do the right thing, really, understand the root causes of the problem and deal with them accordingly, we are in trouble.
I hear you. It goes back to the goodwill that you're talking about. And so, as we bring this to a close, let me start with you, Dr. Shaka. Your closing remarks, and probably I would ask, where do we go from here?
I just wish there was change of attitudes and mindset in the leadership of Congo, DRC, because those are the primary responsible for this conflict. And if they do, then I see so many willingness around here in the region and beyond to support DRC get out of this long conflict. And I hope this is possible, because this is not the first conflict. This very country, Rwanda, experienced even more complicated situation. But then, because there was political will and a serious leadership, now the country is doing very well, and it's serving as an example, despite a very dark history it went through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it is possible. Dr. Alphonse, what do you think? Where do we go from here?
I really hope that M23 can show a difference in where they occupy, because now they occupy a certain space.
Yes.
So they needed to prove to the observers that they are different from, and that is what will give them a legitimacy over their cause, and then they can gain support, and probably that can contribute to removing some of the skepticism about their intentions. Other than that, we have been here. We have had similar agreements signed before. I hope this is not going to be another round of agreements.
I hear you. Karuhanga, where do we go from here?
During the opening, when the joint EAC-SADC Summit was beginning, in the opening remarks, I remember President William Ruto calling for patience. I think he put it in a way that, in pride, he was calling for patience. One session alone is probably not going to end the problem. We already know that the chiefs of defense from both blocs will meet in about 4 days now.
Yeah.
And foreign ministers are supposed to meet after 29 or 30 days. The meetings are going to be regular, which is also good, these meetings. Again, I want to be optimistic. Something good can come out of it. At the end of the day, people will see the light, and hopefully things go the right direction.
We remain positive.
Yeah.
Let's give peace a chance.
Please.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you for your time. In studio, we did have Dr. Shaka Mugabe. He is an associate professor of transitional justice and peace building at the University of Rwanda. Thank you so much for your insights, sir.
Thank you very much.
We also had Dr. Alphonse Mrefu. He is a senior lecturer at the School of Law and acting principal of the College of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Rwanda. Thank you so much for your insights,
Thank
sir.
you for having me.
We also had Adele Chibasumba. She is the president of the Mahoro Peace Association and a member of the Gakondo, the Global Banyamulenge Coordination Committee. She joined us on call from the US. And as well, James Karuhanga. He is a news editor at the New Times. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
And do join us again for another discussion. This has been the Roundtable, New Times Roundtable, discussing the Eastern DRC crisis.